How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the TNA Impact Body Slam post show. I'm joined as always by my good buddy Io. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. We had quite the interesting Thursday, to say at least, from all the way back in the morning. And I figured like, oh man, we're gonna have to like tangle this, between that and then the TNA news. So I figured, yeah, well, we might as well have fun doing it. So yeah, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, the news was definitely unexpected, and I didn't expect to hear to hear that start my day. But obviously, we're gonna get into it just because it does tie into what we're talking about tonight. We talk about TNA. So before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone in this week's podcast is sponsored by Shroom Bar, the protein mushroom bar. It's made up of not psychedelics, but four powerful mushroom adaptogens. It has lion's mane, which increases focus, memory, and neuroplasticity, making it easier to form new patterns and learn new things. Next time you're trying to learn that move, it might actually stick rather than forgetting it immediately. It has quadriceps, which increases VO2 max, blood flow, and overall endurance. It has reishi, which decreases stress. It has turkey tail, which boosts your immune system. We all know you're gonna need that on those nasty ass gym mats. On top of all that, it has 12 grams of protein. Go to shroombar.com and use code bodyslam at the checkout for 25% off your first order. Okay, with that, I'll you let's just get it out of the way right now. You spoke of it at the beginning. As we all know, I think if many of us know, Hulk Hogan
Yeah,
passed away today.
yeah,
That's pretty giant news. I would say,
yeah.
wouldn't you?
It is like, it's just like it's. I don't think many of us has really had like hard the time to kind of like really put it all together, like wow, like like Hogan, I mean, and I said this before on my tweet too, like if it weren't for like Hogan, there wouldn't be no pro wrestling being what it is today and whatnot and stuff. So to hear that news, I mean, it's just like I said, it's just right now it's just kind of like hard to kind of like put it all together. Like you can't really even like if you don't like the guy Terry Bollea or whatnot, it's hard to like put it on toward like to what this man meant for like for not just wrestling but also the whole world and stuff. But yeah, when I heard the news, yeah, when I heard the news, honestly I thought it was I honestly thought it was fake because you know how accounts be and stuff like
Yeah,
freaking TMZ or whatnot and stuff. So I immediately checked the search engine and stuff, and then I saw so many accounts kind of like confirmed, and that's when I figured like, oh wow, it is real. So yeah, how'd you feel when you heard the news?
yeah. I get. First of all, I was right there for a second too, wondering if it was fake. But then obviously I scrolled through my timeline, and then just saw multiple news outlets commenting on it, so I knew that most chances it was real.
Yeah,
Yeah, like when you say Hulk Hogan's name, chances are people obviously for people who don't know wrestling or watch wrestling, that's the name that they're gonna most likely know. I think he's synonymous with wrestling for most
yeah,
people. So yeah, like so whatever whatever the out of the ring stuff besides, that's not the point here. But yeah, for a lot of people, and we have to acknowledge he is a big part of why the business is as strong and recognizable it is today. So yeah, we gotta make that known. So
yeah, yeah. Like it's like his I would say like his like he's like one of those like names where it's just like it's iconic anywhere. Like any you just mentioned the name Hogan, like everybody would know who that is. It's like Jordan or Ali, Tyson, all those all those iconic names. It's just kind of like send those in. And like you mentioned, yeah, some people who are not even into like the wrestling business know who he is, like from actors to like
yeah,
uh personnel, this and that. Pretty much everyone knows the name Hogan. So yeah, to yeah, not to not brag or much on his contribution retrospectives though, we'll leave that to other podcasts and stuff. So yeah, basically, yeah, when Vince Jr., bought the company, from his, dad, Vince Sr., and Hogan, you know, came along, he'd take the territories, and, it was basically like a match, a match made in heaven. I think that was coined a term where Hogan and Vince, became successful partners, and then, Hulkamania, and then the WrestleManias, and the rest is history. And yeah, and then, obviously, Hogan decided to go do some movies and whatnot, and then WCW, and then back to WWE, and then, here we are and stuff. So yeah. So before we get into his TNA time, do you want to talk about Terry Bollea, the person, real quick? Like, if I mean, if that's up to you,
Yeah,
because I
I
figure,
think
yeah. You're saying, yeah,
I think in order to, I think, cause yeah, you can't separate that at this point because unfortunately, the further we got away from his wrestling career, the more that, you know what I mean, the more things
yeah.
that kept happening to where you couldn't, separate it. So yeah, absolutely, we can talk about
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, as great as an iconic name, Hogan is behind the scenes. He's kind of like painted under a different light of being a backstabbing politicking and stuff, and turncoats, like basically like turncoat politicking, backstabbing, racist, whatnot, MAGA and all that stuff. Even like he snitched on Jesse Ventura when when Jesse was trying to like do a mutiny, a strike because wrestlers weren't getting paid as they should, and Hogan being the snitchy as to Vince and stuff. So yeah, yeah, yeah. To say long story short, like Hogan and Terry Bollea are kind of like two different entities. I can assure you, like there are a lot of many people who even close friends with Hogan will probably have different opinions towards him. Like one really say like he's a great friend or great whatever, but yeah, then again, he has some obviously also fellow comrades too, who mourn him. So obviously Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South being one of them. I'm sure you saw the video of Ric Flair, in tears. Couldn't put in much fathom the words and stuff. So yeah, from a legacy standpoint, yeah, he'll be remembered. Like his name will be remembered, but from like a close friend or someone, people who like works with him, like it's kind of. I think I don't want to speak for them, but it's kind of like difficult because again, he has these other problems he's dealt with. He's had in the past. So I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to leave it up to folks. What do you want to do? Like if you can separate the two or not. But yeah. Yeah, any final
Yeah,
thoughts before we see this?
exactly, because
Oh, shout
just
out to
because,
Miguel. Yeah, shout out
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Miguel. Yeah, Hurricane did have a great tweet that was well put, well thought. So I encourage
yeah, I
everyone to
got
check
I
that
guess. Bring it up.
out. You kind of, I mean, you nailed it exactly because while were the further away we got from Hulk Hogan and the contributions in the ring, he became more infamous as Terry Bollea. But that doesn't, obviously, why that's a big part of his life. That doesn't take away his contributions. So while we're still going to remember the contributions, that doesn't take away or erase the other things.
Yeah, shout
So you know
shout
what I
out to
mean?
Helms. Shout out to Hurricane Helms. Yeah, he pretty much summed this like he can't ignore the past stuff that Hogan has done, but like but he wouldn't wish that. He wouldn't wish that on upon his enemy and stuff. So it's just kind of like celebrating, the wrestler, but like hard to kind of like put all that together. So yeah, that's a great tweet from him. All
Yeah.
right. Right, you got anything to say?
No, did you have anything else to talk
All
before we
right.
get into just a little
Well,
bit
I
of
just
his
want to.
TNA
You
career?
wanna. You want to talk about? Yeah. You want to talk about his TNA career? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very ironic. I've been listening to because not only have that's like when I started watching TNA around when Hulk and Eric joined. I started about a year before,
Yeah.
but I've been listening to like a lot of old reviews and watching shows about that time period. But
Yeah.
yeah, you know, again, I think that was for someone who hadn't been watching wrestling in a while. I think that was a great way to get me back just in terms of you having familiar faces on there. You know what I mean? So I see Hogan, I see Bischoff. I'm like, okay. And well, while in retrospect, we look back at those times and we know that things weren't the best backstage and maybe financially. I don't think anyone would deny that those times were very enjoyable. Immortal was I would say, a pretty legendary faction. A lot of things came out of that, as well as we had the Aces and Eights storyline. I think there was a lot of good stuff back then. What were your thoughts on his run in TNA?
Um. Well, and as I look back, it's kind of like something I kind of like I kind of laugh like some of the stuff that he was able to that he was able to do and stuff, but like because then obviously it felt like he was it was no brainer. He was just there for a paycheck. Him and Eric, they didn't really care about the product, the brand. Like even like he won't even promote TNA when he's on his radios and stuff. That's it's what ticked off a lot of the originals, including AJ and James Storm and stuff. But from my view, yeah, I mean, I would say from watching, it made some good TV. I would say at least like from the storytelling standpoint, he like again the immortal era was pretty fun. Um, didn't expect. I know I was caught off guard, like doing turning heel and stuff, and like making us believe, making the fans think he was a good guy. He's gonna change TNA. But I think yeah, the worst. But then I have to bring up some of the most ridiculous ones, like giving Abyss the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame ring,
That promo, the
and having
promo that
him
he,
having Abyss, come on to American Made themes, this to American Made theme song. What else? What else? Oh yeah, Brooks' daughter. Oh, don't even get me started with Brooks, with his daughter. Yeah, having her, be the Knockouts GM, and then eventually marrying Bully Ray and whatnot. And then the last scene of Hogan was him quitting, and then Dixie Carter on his legs begging him to stay. So yeah, sum up your Hogan's run. Good TV, bad booking, and wasted 4 years of TNA's career, and damaged their image, damaged their identity, and whatnot. Yeah, pretty much damaged identity, but good TV. That's how I sum it up.
yeah, it was very WCW esque in the train wreck parts, but those same things are kind of what made WCW enjoyable. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Believe it or not, you know what I mean. So yeah, like it was bad, but again, like you said, there was like a lot of enjoyable stuff. I always liked when like Jay Lethal would come in as Macho Man, and
yeah,
they would do promos. I always thought that was really enjoyable. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right, completely with everything you said.
yeah.
Okay, any final thoughts before we get into tonight's show?
Um, that's about it. I mean, I know a lot of people are gonna be for the next couple weeks. A lot of Hogan discussions. So glad we got our few cents in and stuff. So yeah, yeah, I think we're all good.
Okay, let's get into tonight's live TNA episode. I believe they were in Kingston, Rhode Island. I didn't get the name of the building or what the
The
camp
the
where they
Ri-
were at.
the Rhine Center. It's at the
Okay,
University of Rhode Island.
okay. And despite I saw a few people saying that the crowd was kind of quiet, and I thought at parts, yeah, but I definitely think they came alive when the Hardys came out. A lot of the bigger names came out, but yeah, I thought this was a very good show, especially
Yeah.
like a Fallout show. I was really impressed with it. What did you think?
Um. Well, I thought the show. Well, I know some people have their thoughts and stuff about the overall show. Like they were expecting a big more stuff. I mean, to be honest, I was kind of expecting at least few more surprises. I mean, we at least got one surprise, which we'll get into later. But from the crowd, yeah, they seem to be I agree. They seem to be quiet for a while, but then certain matches picked up like the Jake something, Mance Warner, and then of course the main event. So I mean, you gotta understand too, like it's a Thursday, like it's not really often people come to a wrestling show on a Thursday, but usually like if TNA like had like a live show, I mean they always do Fridays. Like I'm sure the crowd would probably be more pumped and more packed and whatnot. So yeah, so it felt like a regular. It kind of felt like a regular Impact episode, to be honest.
You know what though, in terms of, and I agree with you on that. In terms of like the people who are like maybe a little underwhelmed, let me just say I think that the opening promo, we're going to get into it, just kind of sums up, I think, why people should have expected much. And I think going forward, you should expect more. But yeah, so we'll get into it. So we start the show obviously with a Slammiversary recap. They basically run down the card, show you the highlights. Then we get into a Santino. He opens the show, and pretty quickly we're joined by Masha Slamovich. And she really doesn't say much, but what sticks out is that she wants a rematch for next week, which is intriguing. I believe Emergence is the 19th of August, so we have a little bit less than a month to go before then. But you would think that they'd hold that off till then, just because we don't know any matches yet. What do you think about that? Just real quick, Macho getting a rematch next week. Too soon, or
Um, you would say too soon, but like the thing is like not only Masha like has well yeah she has a title rematch, but again we mentioned Ash by Elegance, she still has a title shot. So it's kind of like figuring out okay like I mean it's showing how heavy the contendership right now it is for the Knockouts title. So um you could say that. I mean, some people argue like, why don't you just do the title match tonight? Since it's live and next week, being being TARP, and stuff. But I don't know. I guess they're just trying to like uh position Masha like as like show she was robbed because she was robbed from Slammiversary, and then you get her back in the title picture. So yeah, I mean, we'll see it goes out next week.
okay, Joe, I'm gonna get into that right now because this is my whole point. And so okay, and this is what I thought was the segment of the night. The system comes out, and first we get Eddie on the mic, and this is what I guess you would call this a de facto face turn. And I'm
Yeah,
glad Eddie spoke. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad Eddie spoke first because if there was going to be anybody to wave the flag of TNA, it should be him. And that's my point. I'm going to get into before we run out of this promo. Anybody who's wondering why NXT people it wasn't like they were going to show up or more surprises until this point. Yes, Trick has had the title, but of course, like the heels aren't going to give a shit. Why would they care what's happening to TNA? They really only care about theirs. You know what I mean? So now that both titles, both the top two titles there, now it's the time for everyone to reunite. Now that's why you're going to see basically the only heels will be at NXT. It's us, it's them, it's TNA versus NXT. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like how it is like in a superhero movie, like where one superhero goes down and then another, and then it wakes the other superheroes up to like, all right, this is not just involving them, it's involving all of us. So yeah, that's kind of like how it is, how the system feels. Like, as heels, as great heels where they are, they're like, the main core group in TNA. So like them, I like the promo from Moose and Eddie, because they really spoke from the hearts, especially Moose. Like they really waved the banner of those three letters TNA and carried it on for so many years and stuff. So if it wasn't any clear that the system are baby faces, there are baby faces. Um, so yeah, I really like the promo from both guys. Like let them know that both like it's time to fight back. Like we have two of our main championships are from outsiders. Like it's time to bring the fight in, and yeah, hit all pointers from the system.
yeah, the system come out basically. They're in TNA colors. They match the logo. They got the
That's
orange and
true.
red
Yeah,
on.
that's true.
Um, Eddie Edwards basically just saying, he may have tried to burn this place down, but that was a long time ago. Now he's waving the TNA flag. You get Brian Myers, who again talking about how much he loves TNA. JDC just simple says they don't crack under pressure, they are the pressure. And then you get Moose, who I thought cut the best promo of his career. He looks at Eddie and says that while he's the heart and soul of TNA, he, in a good, you know what I mean? And then he's the franchise and basically calls out Trick, you know what I mean? Like, and so then, as I said, Trick comes out and he's with First Class. Big money, by the way. Trick's talking about how he beat Average Joe. I forget what he said about Santana. You know what I mean? But
The loud and proud, like he's mocking him when he say loud and proud Boica. That's it. Yeah.
and then I forget who said this, but I think it was oh yeah, Moose called AJ Francis Uncle Phil, and he called Casey Navarro pink.
No,
I was
pink.
dying. This whole
I laughed.
promo. And then Trick basically goes into like I would say a little bit of like kind of like a little not a freestyle, but kind of like doing some of the highlights of his rap in a way. He was calling out all the a lot of the TNA locker room, and then he got to Order 4, and then who should show up? Ali, and Ali, he says Order 4 is the best faction. And I think one of the lines of the night, he said he told Trick to keep his name out of his mouth, or he's going to bury him like Taker, and that's a reference to Tuesday. I did see this, Taker did choke slam Trick, so I thought this was a phenomenal segment. I thought this was all good shit.
Yeah, yeah. It was a good segment. Letting three factions, staking their claim. Who's like whose house this is. So you have first class tricking, and Order 4, letting the system know, what's up and stuff, and then hell broke loose as soon as Ali got into the ring. It was yeah, it was a pretty fun way to kick off, this episode of Impact.
Do they still is Is Lethal Lockdown still a show, or have they not done that in a while? And when was the last Lethal Lockdown?
Um, like the show or the match?
A match, or well, yeah, when's the last pay per view Lethal Lockdown show that they did?
The last Lockdown pay-per-view was 2014. The last Lethal Lockdown was 2016. But as you know, they did a tag team steel cage, back at Sacrifice. You remember?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah,
I think with these three factions, what a great like Lethal Lockdown type match. I think that could be just
yeah,
because you know what I mean. I just
yeah.
also think
They're definitely building. They're definitely building Order 4 versus the System, and especially as we're going to get into later tonight with addition of a new person and stuff.
yeah,
It should be
exactly.
yeah, it should be a very interesting feud. Yeah,
Any anyone who might be like saying, "Oh, TNA's in trouble." I can't remember the last time TNA's had this many additions to the roster in a short amount of
hmm
time, and it wasn't like they lost a bunch of people. So, and we're going to talk about it tonight. So, as we get more into the show, but yeah, again, I thought this segment was great. Real quick, we go backstage, and it was just Santana. I mean, the system in Cardona, uh, basically just saying that they want the system tonight because Santino said we're gonna have a reunion of the major players. Cardona and the system are gonna get Order 4 later tonight, but that should be good.
yeah. The major players were
Yeah. Okay. Next, we're gonna move on to well, next segment. The concierge comes out. He insults the fans. I forget what he said, but it was brilliant. He was talking about I think something like like elegant once in a lifetime. He had a great line, as he always does. He's away with words, Iceman.
Yeah, leaving Highsmith to piss off the Rhode Island crowd. Uh,
But he introduces the Elegance brand. It's obviously Ash and Heather, accompanied by Maggie. They're going to take on the. Well, actually, no. It's a trios match. It's a women's. So it's Maggie, Ash, and Heather. They're taking on the Inspiration with a surprise opponent. And let me say, this is the first time they teased a mystery opponent, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. And I was like, okay, it was Jakara. It was Mara Sade, aka Jakara Jackson from NXT.
Mara Sade. Mara
Mara
Sade.
Sade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this was a great showcase of her. They made her look really strong out there. Again, I think the Inspiration continued to look great since coming back to TNA. I thought everyone shined in this match. What did you think?
Definitely. Definitely. I'm a big fan of Mara Sade, the former Jakara Jackson. So when I heard what she got released, I knew like, she would fit well in TNA because for those that watch her in NXT, her like along with Lash Legend and then the other Metaphor, they all stood out. Like they were very good fan favorites of the show. So and then like when they broke up, well, I mean when they split, like when they split on NXT, like it really upset a lot of their fans. And then more shocking, like when she got released, it was even more shocking. So kudos to TNA. I mean, and it became official. She's a part of the roster now. So yeah, kudos on that. I think she's gonna do well. Um, yeah, she has a nice look, and she wouldn't be that difficult to stand out from the roster. But yeah, to the trios match, it was pretty good. Yeah, a lot of ladies, a lot of the ladies look good, especially the Inspiration. Um, Also, what I noticed, you notice the chemistry from the Elegance brand, specifically Header and M. Like you saw the tag moves that they were doing, right?
Yes.
This at one point where at one point Header did this Hurricanrana, and then M did the senton. So you can literally tell like if they ever did like a Freebird rule. Like I would like to kind of see Header and M, do a little more tag match and stuff. And not a knock on Ash. I just feel like there's more chemistry with Header and M.
Yeah,
But yeah, the match was pretty good. Yeah, this was to keep the inspiration back on tag title contention. And again, like you said, good way to showcase Mara. So yeah, decent. I mean, decent trios match. But yeah, but everyone got to shine.
I love the inspirations finisher, the idolizer. It like again we've said it before, kind of looks like a reverse Magic Killer or like a variation of it. It's pretty dope looking.
Hmm.
Uh yeah, the addition of Mara, this the knockouts division is getting pretty deep pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's
Um
coming loaded.
yeah, they're loading up with a lot of talent and I don't think that they're done. So
No.
this
I have a good word from a good friend of mine. Yeah, they're still stacking up the division.
yeah, and I kind of like it's kind of like what I mentioned I think a few months back. I like that they are keeping a close eye on, and that helps with because they should get first dibs on the people through WWE that are released. But
Yeah,
why not the people who are released from WWE? They should go immediately to NXT, especially if there's, you know what I mean. Not like everybody, but I'm saying a lot of those people have a lot of talent. They're just underutilized and underbooked. So
hmm,
TNA looking at a lot of them is a very smart move. Okay, next we're gonna go to it was two back-to-back statements really, and I like how they did this. I believe her name's Gabby. Is that the new interview woman's name?
Gabby Lasparza.
Yeah, okay, Gabby Esparza. She tried to interview Santana, and I like this. He kind of like blew her, not really like blew her off rudely, but as we'll go into like the main event, the theme of the night, he's not about talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's not gonna speak. He's gonna do his talking in the ring. But then she catches up with Indy, and then he just kind of talks about what Tessa did to Gia. And if you guys watched the anniversary, and we talked about it, that what an angle that was. But then he just kind of talks about Tessa, and then Danny comes up, and Danny just kind of, you know what I mean. It seems like Danny's and Andy are very friendly, and then all of a sudden, Victoria Crawford comes, and I thought this was kind of funny. She's just kind of basically saying that she's both their mentors, and they both are saying, "No, you're not." But I thought this was very funny for what it was.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like I thought Jody Threat was gonna come next, like right after Danny Lynn, but to kind of like continue on what went down last week backstage and stuff. That's for another different chat. Um, yeah, we'll see what they got going on for Victoria. Seems she's gonna be still on TV, since Tessa suspended and stuff. So see where it goes from there. Um, Also seems like yeah, Indy and Danny are starting like to be a buddy buddy relationship type of thing. See what goes from there. And it just still shows you, man, like how stacked this division is. Like this is not they're not even they're not even top contenders right now for like the Knockouts title, and it shows how stacked the division is.
And yeah, speaking of additions, it wouldn't surprise me if this is building up to a Tessa versus Gia in her first match as a knockout. You know what I mean? And again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying last week. Tessa just kind of putting people over and trying to build the next stars of the
Yeah,
division. So
yeah,
I think if that's where they're going, you know what I mean? They already have me intrigued
yeah.
just because they showed you they even not they showed you at the beginning of the
She's
show, but
she's
I'll
basically she's basically becoming the Bully Ray role as far as
yes,
like in the knockouts. Like when you stand up to her, or when you're dealing with like when you're dealing, let's say like when you stand up to like Bully Ray, or dealing with him, it means something. Like, and then the crowd is routing behind you and all that stuff. So that's what they're kind of doing here. So probably have to wait till Gia returns and stuff and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, they showed once again during like the Bioflex injury report, they're really playing up that injury, and I believe
Yeah,
Gia had just posted something a couple days ago, kind of showing the injuries and saying she's taking time away. So they're doing a really good job with just 4 days out from this to really make it intriguing. So yeah, this is one of their money feuds already. Okay, next we're gonna go into just a quick Northern Armory promo, and kudos to whoever kind of has been working with the Northern Armory because it's not they don't have to say much now. They just look menacing and unhinged next to Eric Young and play off him as he's kind of going deeper and deeper into crazy EY. But I thought this was really good. What'd you think about this?
yeah. Um, Another thing too, like EY, hit some pointers too in his promo. Basically saying, basically describing the company as a mess, and like actions need to be taken care of. He's basically kind of doing the whole rah rah speech that Moose and our champions later on are going to be doing and stuff. But yeah, yeah, EY, still losing his mind. See where it goes from there. And I gotta feel bad. I feel bad for Icarus and Travis. They're just kind of like standing there and just like taking it all the loudness and anger. He's putting on them and stuff. It's just like, boys, you got to do something. Like you can't, yeah, he can't just keep yelling in your face for this long. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, do something about it. But
Next, we're gonna go into, I would say, basically like a continuation of the first segment. It starts with a Leon Slater promo, just kind of talking about what winning the title means to him, getting the praise from AJ Styles, just things like that. And then the Hardys come out and they do a lot of the same thing. Jeff had a really funny line. I forget something about the Soul Train or something like that.
yeah,
Jeff was
yeah,
I was cracking up what Jeff was saying.
yeah,
And then Steve Macklin came out and he basically just kind of, and obviously these are the last champions left besides the Elegance brand. And he's just kind of running down all their accomplishments, putting them all over. I think Steve Macklin has proved that he is not only I think he's a natural baby face, and I think that he's kind of eclipsing his run as a heel right now. He's very easy to root for. You know what I mean? He's just like he's got a little bit of that everyman like Stone Cold and a lot of other wrestlers have. You know what I mean? You want to
yeah,
get behind him like a Hangman
yeah,
or you know what I mean? But he just basically they're putting TNA on their backs as well. What'd you think about all this?
yeah. This was a great one. I'll start with Leon. Yeah, I thought at first I was a little cautious because of the accents, and stuff, but he really cut a good promo. Um, talking about how awesome Sunday was, winning the title, and then complimenting the system and well, complimenting Moose, being a good competitor, and then obviously shout out to AJ Styles, giving him the rub, and then of course he wouldn't have made it. What he mentioned he wouldn't have made it this far without the mentorship from the Hardys, and then it comes to Hardys. So yeah, and then. Macklin comes and then it becomes like an all champions segment. So like yeah, Macklin cut a good promo here, letting them know like as great as the champions are in the ring, like the situation at hand, like two titles are with NXT talent. It's time to stand their ground, as Macklin was saying, uphold the line as it says on his new shirt, and like basically put the NXT and the world on notice if anyone wants to come after their belts, try like basically yeah, start basically hold doing the rah-rah speech and like holding the front. Like TNA needs to fight back in this matter. So it was a pretty good segment.
Definitely. Okay, next we're going to move into what I thought was a very, very entertaining match. It was Mance Warner with obviously SDL versus Jake something. I didn't catch this was going to be a hardcore match, but this was a pretty fun hardcore TV hardcore match. You know, they beat the shit out of each other for I would say like 10 minutes. There was the thumbtack spots. There was, you know, an almost sledgehammer killing. This was good shit. I like this kind of me and Mance's. I like how Mance is kind of the new Sammy Callahan. This is his signature match, it would seem. But Jake
Yeah,
something did get the win. I believe hit the black hole slam at the end. I believe that's what the movie hit. But this was good. What did you think about this?
yeah. He calls it the void.
Okay.
This was a good no DQ match. Um, as you know, the last time they fought, it was a no contest because Mac got involved too and stuff. So this is basically um pecking order match. Someone needs to climb up and then some back and one of them needs to like move up in the ranks, especially if they want to get another shot at the international title and stuff. Um, yeah, a lot of good spots. A lot of good spots. I like. Oh yeah, the sledgehammer scene. Yeah, Steph, brought out the sledgehammer. I remember saying this to a friend, like a sledgehammer in a TNA ring. Imagine that. So yeah, Jake was able to block that, and then Mance went for a steel chair, and then Jake was able to block that, and kind of managed to overcome, and then again hit the void later for the 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, it was pretty good match. Right guy won too. Since Jake just came back.
Yeah. Okay, next we're going to move into just a fatal influence segment, and all three are here. We had Jasmine Nix, Fallon Henley, and of course the double champ, the TNA Knockouts champ, along with as well as the NXT Women's Champion, JC Jane. I thought this was a fucking money promo. She's basically roasting the whole division. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I thought she put the whole division on notice. I thought this was phenomenal. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Fatal influence. Yeah, making sure they ain't making any friends in that roster. Um, yeah, she listed down some of the names, and dissed on them. Unfortunately, she misspelled uh Xia Li's new name, Lei Ying Li. She's Lei Ying Li now. She called her Xia Li, so that was a little funny. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Unfortunately, I thought someone should have confronted them. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's like I think that's what like some people are kind of complaining about. Like no one has from TNA has really like stepped up and done something from Tuesday outside Santino and compared to tonight, like with Fatal Influence, like someone should have like confronted them, like defend the brand TNA. But I guess maybe we'll probably have to see that later on. Because JC's defending against Masha next week. But yeah, this was a good segment. Yeah, like you mentioned, to really let people know that JC she's not only the TNA Knockouts champion, she's also in like our mind she feels like she's spinning on the brand, this and on the brand,
Mm-hmm.
and the Knockouts are gonna have to figure out a way. Just like the men right now, they're dealing with Trick. They're gonna have to figure a way how to deal with JC. So
And you know what? I think that could nobody from TNA coming out could be by design because now with Masha challenging so soon, it makes me think that she will not win. And so knowing that at this point that she was going to be her match, they kind of want to conclude that feud. So I would think somebody could show up to NXT the following week, just because then it's time for somebody new to step up from TNA, and that's that's a big opportunity, I think, and that could be very smart for TNA, because like I said, the Masha's already kind of built up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they need to start building some more contenders before they run into the problem they had before, when they kind of had to force Ash because there was nobody left. You know what I mean? And also, like, and speaking of Ash, she does have her number one contender spot, and that's always looming. So, okay. And next, we're going to go into an Order 4 match. It was John Skyler and Jason Hotch versus the Major Players. And you kind of alluded to this segment earlier. The Order 4 was able to get a win in a pretty back and forth match by, I don't know how you could miss him. They had a giant new member of the Secret Service. And let me pull up, I got a little bit of info on who this was from our my good buddy from Body Slam, Jose Gonzalez. He told me this was Bill Collier, and apparently he had wrestled a little bit in ICW and ESW, and I believe you also pointed out to me that he had a match on AEW Dark as well. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, yeah. He's had a couple matches on AEW Dark. I was impressed with him when I first saw him. Like he felt like like a big. He reminded me a lot of like Test. Very built, very muscular, tower looking dude. So it was sorry, yeah, very very muscular looking dude. And it really adds an element to the Order 4 faction that now they have like
A heavy.
they're growing by numbers. Yeah. Yeah, it just shows, Tasha, her planning a couple weeks ago, it really helped, Mustafa and crew, get back things in order, and now they're starting to grow and grow in their, cabinet and stuff. But yeah, Bill Collier, as you mentioned, it'll be interesting, how he factors in this, because he's a very big dude, like, and could probably be a real difference maker, into this new assemblage of Order 4.
Yeah, it's you said Tess. He kind of in the face. He kind of had like a scary face to me, like a Joe Dorian type. He's very very intimidating.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? He's
yeah.
definitely going to be the monster of the group, and that was lacking. So, Order 4 is getting strong, and they did
Someone
need another
someone
member
to
anyway.
yeah, someone to match with Moose possibly when
Yeah,
Order 4 the system go against each other.
exactly. Okay, next we're going to move into our main event, but before the main event takes place, as always, especially when Joe Henry is around, Kazarian was going to take his place at the ringside. And this was your typical even the heel announcers had enough. Raywall was not having it. He had security get his ass out of there. I thought this was
Yeah,
very interesting.
yeah, yeah. Which is pretty rare. Like normally Ray Wall would be happy to have, considering commentary, but I'm guessing because of the situation, from Sunday, and Frankie's been sticking his nose too many times and a lot of things. They figure, you know what, Frankie, not he's right. Frankie, not the time. Let's get out of there and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so we obviously I had just mentioned we move into the main event, which was Joe Henry versus Mike Santana. And the theme of this match, Tom Hannafin was kind of painting the narrative. These guys both you had saw Santana decline an interview. They had mentioned that Joe declined one earlier in the evening. I mean, previously in the night. So yeah, this was a very, very competitive match, and I believe I can't I don't know how where I can pull it up. I have to look for it. But I believe you said earlier in the night that these two are both standing in each other's way in terms of the world champion, and that's a
yeah,
very spot on take. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I was exact. I agree with you completely. What'd you think about
yeah.
this match?
This was a very, very good main event. You can tell like both guys were not in their normal, state of minds because obviously, like, you can't blame them, that the title's not with still not with a TNA wrestler and stuff. Yeah, I mentioned, yeah, this was an important match for both guys because in order to get back in contention, one of them has to bring the other one up down a notch, and then the other moves up. So it's basically, yeah, someone has to move up between one of them. And yeah, I think this was probably Joe's best match in a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of good counter offenses and stuff. So what you thought of the match?
Well, obviously, I thought Santana had to win because it's not over between him and Trick. I thought the interesting part of Joe kind of like shaking his hand, you know what I mean, kind of putting him over in that. This kind of feels like we're getting close to Joe being done with TNA. I would presume he would have maybe one last big time feud. Obviously, I don't think it'll be for a title, but yeah, I don't think that he's going to be a factor in the main event, upper main event scene going forward.
Yeah, this Santana definitely needed this win, especially if we feel like if he still want him to like uh back in contention. I remember like they kept saying the road to Bound for Glory, road to Bound for Glory. So you kind of see where they're kind of like planting the seeds and stuff. But yeah, it was a good match. A lot of counter. Both guys had some reverses and counters and move. The crowd was definitely up for this one. Like we mentioned, like they were a little quiet early in the morning. I mean, quiet earlier, but like now they're definitely loud towards the main event. Um, yeah, for Hendry, this seems like this definitely puts him out of the title contention. Uh, we'll have to see where he goes from there next and stuff. As you mentioned, where he might possibly do next, but yeah, for now he's out. He seems like he's out of the title contention. Uh, Santana, yeah, climbing up the ranks. See where it goes. See what he does next. Yeah.
Do you think that
Oh
they
no.
hold off?
What you're saying?
Oh no, I was going to ask you. Do you, okay? Because they keep saying the road to Bound for Glory, especially when Santana's around. But I believe that they have two shows: Emergence and what's the September show? Do they have a September show?
Victor Row. Victor
Yeah.
Row.
So there's two shows before Bound for Glory. Do you think that they hold off Santana getting his title shot till then? And if they do, are we thinking some sort of BFG series? Because that definitely could be something Joe Hendry could be in. Obviously not win, but what do you think they go from here in terms of Santana?
Um. Well, like you mentioned, the Bound for Glory series. I think that's one way to like kind of keep everyone busy for like building up a contender for that pay-per-view. Um.
Yes.
At this point, with the way folks have been reacting, like if Santana didn't win a Slammiversary, what's the next big thing? Probably Bound for. I mean, it's definitely Bound for Glory because the other two are plus specials. No offense, and it's Bound for Glory is in a bigger venue too. So it seems like from the booking standpoint, if Santana isn't gonna probably get his crown, and it's probably gonna be in October. So we're just gonna have to see how TNA builds up to that. One solution would be the Bound for Glory series. It will keep all the contenders busy. It will keep Trick doing his thing in NXT for a while doing short TNA stuff. But it'll keep everybody busy. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Because you could have a majority of the roster, and that's a good way to have Santana like rebuild himself up. You know what I mean? Even though it would be predictable him winning, that's not the point. And then like we talked about, Joe could be in it again. Those are major feuds. Again, he doesn't have to win it. But yeah, and then because I just don't know who they would have Trick defend, if anybody, these next two shows. Because I don't see Trick defending the title at Emergence at all. Unless maybe somebody from
One,
NXT.
I don't see him defending on both plus specials. He might defend at Emergence, probably against Moose. So
Yeah, that seems to be a easy way to go, especially since Moose did
yeah,
call him
I
out.
like to I like to see that one. Yeah, Moose versus Trick.
Yeah, I know Moose is a little bit banged up, but I
And
think
if
they
anyone
yeah
can give
with the trip.
if anyone can give Trick a great match, it's definitely Moose.
Yeah, I could agree completely. But yeah, I would rather see a BFG series just because, getting good tournament matches every week on TV and maybe some in emergence. And then obviously you could do the two finals at against all odds. I mean, the final at against all odds or not against all odds,
Yeah.
Picture Road. But yeah, I would love to see a return of the BFG series. Tournaments of wrestling are always good. And I always like the BFG series.
Yeah, it boosts up their momentum too. Like
Yeah.
like when
Makes them
Cody
bars.
Won the Royal Rumble, you felt it like this is
Uh-huh.
like the ticket to it's like the ticket to superstardom, the big dance, like when you win the Rumble. That's how like the Bound for Glory series should feel like.
And
Uh,
yeah, you can always have some fun matches. Like obviously, you
and
could
if
have
you include,
hometown.
yeah, I was gonna say it would make it more interesting. You include NXT talent too, so it's
Oh
kind of like a
yeah.
risky. It's kind of like a risky situation. Like,
Hmm.
could could Bound for Glory have two NXT guys in the main event, or just be one TNA and one NXT? You know what I mean? It's like one of those like calculated tournament type
Hmm.
of anticipation. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I could see hometown man being the Yano of the tournament, and maybe
Yeah.
getting some fun comedy wins over the likes of Eric Young, maybe another person.
Yeah.
But yeah, the adding the
Yeah.
NXT, adding the
Yeah,
NXT
Joe
involved.
mentioned Trick will likely defend on Heat Wave or No Mercy. It's possible.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, I'm trying to think because I could see them maybe just because you could do the N angle where Ethan challenges for that title. You know what I mean? Because he's a former TNA guy in NXT. If they don't go the route of the BFG series and they have Trick defend, against people. I mean, you know what I mean? Two new opponents, but I just don't see anybody other than Moose that he would wrestle right now.
Hmm.
Okay, but with that being said, do you have any final thoughts on the show?
Yeah, man, this is honestly like this whole week has been very yeah, very how to put it, is very fun, very overwhelming. Like yeah, very fun, overwhelming, and then a lot of yeah, a lot to develop, so to speak, between Slammiversary and the live Impact, and then NXT and the reactions, and obviously the sad news, with Hogan and stuff. But Hogan, Ozzy, a lot of people passed away this week, but yeah. So yeah. Tonight's episode was very very fun. Yeah, we're just gonna see what goes from there. Before we get to Bound for Glory, we're on the road to Emergence, and it'll be interesting if when TNA is going to strike back. Like, are we going to have any evasions or appearances? Like, how are they going to respond to like the fact that two titles are with NXT wrestlers and stuff?
Yeah, there's so much to pay attention to in TNA right now, and not just
Like,
the builds to
you can't just sit down and do same old promos. I mentioned this on the tweet too. Like, the time for talking is over. It's time for actions.
exactly. Yeah, there's so much to things to pay attention to. Like obviously the storylines, obviously the big one being NXT versus TNA versus NXT, and then you have the pending what we've all been anticipating maybe a new TV deal. There's new signings that are obviously are still coming. Yeah, this is the best time to pay attention to TNAs right now. So
Mhm. Trended
uh,
on the top, trended in the top 8 too. So yeah. Yeah.
they've been trending for a while now, and I believe weren't they number one during Slammiversary?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, with that being said, I want to thank you guys all for joining. Make sure you guys like and subscribe so you get notified whenever we go live or whenever any of the great people on Body Slam go live. With that being said, have a good night, and we'll see you all next week.
Ciao.
Oh, thank you! Oh, thank you! Oh, thank you!